It is now because it was the phone that was doing it. It was the phone that was doing it. And we're live. We are live.
Nope, only one person watching, one person.
Morning,
4
everybody.
person, 6 person.
Hi, Bryony. Hi,
4
Amy. Hope you and the kids are well.
4 people.
So if you're just joining us, we have got chapter 2 of the Iron Man to read. So we'll just give it a couple of minutes to let some people come on in. Hi, Joanna. Hi, Emma. Hi, MD, JD. Good morning, good morning, good morning. So if you're just joining us, we're going to be doing chapter 2 of the Iron Man.
Because we read chapter 1.
Because last Monday we read chapter 1. So each Monday in June, we're going to be reading a chapter of
But what if
the
we
Iron
doesn't
Man.
make it?
What if what?
What if we didn't finish it?
Well, there's 5 Mondays in June, and there's 5 chapters in this book. So as long as we do it every Monday, we'll get to the end of the book.
But how? But then, what when Auntie Banana reads the book, then I will know what's going to happen in the book.
That's good because then you can help with the challenges.
Nah.
So last week we gave everybody a challenge of making their own Iron Man with, what was it, Zaya? Metal. All things that you can find in your home. And a few people sent us some pictures of those and they were really good. And this week we've just come up with another challenge for chapter 2. So if you've just joined us, we did chapter 1 on Monday, last Monday, and we're doing chapter 2 today. And if you missed chapter 1, don't worry, we can give you a quick recap on what's happened so far, can't we? So before we do that, we're going to get warmed up a little bit. To put the book to one side, Zay. Come. We're going to get warmed up a little bit because it's Monday morning. Let me just tip this down a little bit because it's a bit better. Oh, no, it's not. Sorry, Facebook. Because it's Monday morning. Everyone's probably feeling tired after a wild weekend of gaming and stuff. Would you agree? Have you been gaming?
No.
So we need to wake ourselves up a little bit, okay? So I'm going to go first and then Zaya's going to copy. So you guys are going to copy what Zaya does. Are we ready? We go like this. Say boom, chicka boom.
Boom, chicka boom.
Say boom, chicka boom.
Boom, chicka boom.
Say boom, chicka rocka, chicka boom.
Boom, chicka wacka, chicka boom.
Say hey.
Hey.
Say ho.
Oh.
And this time we are going to do the same thing, but I'm going to say something a little bit different, okay? Are we ready? I want you to say this. I am smart.
I'm smart.
But you've got to say it like you mean it, Zaya.
I
Are we ready? I am smart.
I'm smart.
Very good. Are we all saying it at home? Brilliant. Then we say, I am kind. Can you all do that for me?
I'm kind.
Very good. So we've got I am smart, I am kind.
smart.
And then the last one we say, I am important. Could you say that, everybody?
I am important.
Very good. So we're going to put them all together. I'll go, then Zaya will go. So you guys are going to be doing it at the same time that Zaya does it. Are we ready? I am kind.
I am kind.
No, that's wrong. Why do I always get it wrong? Start again. I am smart.
I am smart.
I am kind.
I'm kind.
I am important.
I am important.
Let's say it one more time and I'll get it right. I promise this time. Are we ready? I am smart. July, you're up. I am smart.
I am kind.
So, I am kind.
No, that's not kind.
It is.
That's not in the.
I'm smart. I'm kind. I'm important.
What's that mean?
I'm kind. I'm a kind person.
What that doesn't mean.
Don't ever go live with children, guys. It's a bit crazy. But we get the idea. So those 3 things are 3 things that you could say at home that are really, really important to just make sure that you really, really stand by those things, that you are kind, you are smart, and you are important. Now, chapter 1. Sorry if I'm looking this way and that way. We've got Instagram and Facebook going at the same time. So, I know you know how I feel, Tara, about this. You've got, I think, 5 boys. Yeah. So chapter 1 we read last week, and in chapter 1 we had the character of the Iron Man. Remember where he was standing, Zaya? At the edge of the edge of a
cliff.
At the edge of a cliff, that's right. So the Iron Man was at the edge of the cliff. His head was the shape of a trash can, but it was the size of a bedroom, not just a bed, a bedroom. So imagine how large it is. And in the first page, the Iron Man steps out over the cliff and falls and well, it could be a small bedroom, big bedroom, just an average size bedroom, I reckon. And what happened to the Iron Man when he went down? Just like that. And he broke up into loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads and loads of different pieces. But then, what happened?
He builded it back up, the Iron Man.
Yeah, the Iron Man managed to build himself back up. So his eye found his hand, and he found all the different parts of the Iron Man. And he managed to get all the parts together apart from... Can you remember there was one thing?
One ear.
One ear. So one ear is missing. But he goes looking for the ear in the...
Why does he need another ear?
I mean, he might just be like, let me try and find it at least.
He doesn't even have an ear.
He does. You can't see it in that picture there, but he can hear things, obviously. So, he's missing an ear, and he thinks that the sea must have swallowed it up. So he starts to walk into the sea, and at the end of chapter 2, the water is here, and the water goes...
You're on chapter 3.
Over his head. So,
chapter 3.
on this one, chapter 2 though, aren't we? We're a little bit ahead at home, aren't we? But these guys haven't read chapter 2, so we're going to read chapter 2 to you now. Woo! We got there in the end. Okay, let me just...
No,
sizzle
we're
that
on
down a
chapter
bit.
3.
That down a little bit.
No, remember when they got a picnic?
Yeah, we didn't do that with Boom Chicka Boom.
We did.
We didn't.
Okay,
It's
we'll
up against me today. Go with the flow. Okay, so chapter 2. Get yourself nice and comfy because these aren't short and sweet
I'm not
chapters. Well,
comfy.
a few pages. So, and chapter 2 is called "The Return of the Iron Man." Dun, 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 dun.
The return.
And then at the end of chapter 2, we're going to give you a
challenge.
challenge. Okay, are we ready?
Okay, are you ready?
One evening.
No.
Best behaviour. Best behaviour. Best
Can
behaviour.
I read it?
You can read some of it. 1 second. Let me get to it, and then I'll get a part that you can read. One evening, a farmer's son, a boy called Hogarth, was fishing in a stream that ran down the sea. It was growing too dark to fish. His hook kept getting caught in the weeds and bushes. So he stopped fishing and came up the stream and stood listening to the owls in the wood further up the valley and to the sea behind him. What sound do owls make? Twit-two. Woo! Juicing yourself up. Hush, said the sea, and again, hush, hush, hush. Suddenly, he felt a strange feeling. He felt he was being watched. He felt afraid. He turned and looked up the steep field to the top of the high cliff. Behind that skyline was the sheer, rocky cliff and the sea. And on that skyline, just above the edge of it, in the dusk, there were 2 green lights. What were those 2 green lights doing at the top of the cliff? Then, as Hogarth watched, a huge dark figure climbed up over the cliff top. The 2 lights rose into the sky. They were the giant figure's eyes. A giant black figure taller than a house, black and towering in the twilight with green headlamp eyes. The Iron Man. There he stood on the cliff top looking inland. Hogarth began to run. He ran and ran and ran home. Go, quick then, come straight back. The Iron Man had come back. So he had got home at last and gasping for breath, he told his dad, "An Iron Man, an Iron Man, a giant!" His father frowned. His mother grew pale. His sister began to cry. So lots and lots of different feelings around the family. His father took down his double-barreled gun. Oh my goodness. He believed his son. He went out. He locked the door and he got into the car. He drove to the next farm. But that farmer laughed. He was a fat, red man with a fat, red-mouthed laugh. I wonder what that might sound like. A fat, red man with a fat, red-mouthed laugh. What would that sound like, Zaya? Then he stopped laughing. His eyes were red too. "An Iron Man? Nonsense," he said. So Hogarth's father got back in the car. Now it was dark and it began to rain. He drove to the next farmer. That farmer frowned. He believed. "Tomorrow," he said, "we must see what he is, this Iron Man. His feet have left tracks in the earth." So Hogarth's father got back into the car. But as he turned the car in the yard, he saw a strange thing in the headlamps. Half a tractor lay there, just half, chopped clean off, the other half missing. He got out of the car and another farmer came to look too. The tractor had been bitten off. There were big teeth marks of steel. No explanation. The two men looked at each other. They were puzzled and afraid. What could have bitten the tractor in two? There in a yard, the rain, in the night, while they had been talking inside. The farmer ran in and bolted his door. Hogarth's father jumped into his car and drove off into the night, into the rain as fast as he could, homeward bound. The rain poured down. Hogarth's father drove hard. The headlights lit up the road and bushes, and suddenly 2 headlamps in a tall treetop at the roadside ahead. Headlamps in a treetop? How? Hogarth's father slowed, peering up to see what the headlights might be. Up there in the treetop, as he slowed, a giant iron foot came down in the middle of the road. A foot as big as a single bed. So a foot as big as a single bed. Imagine.
What's a single?
Like your bed is a single-sized bed.
Well, imagine it were... Nah.
Yeah, so his foot is the same size as your bed.
No, it's not. It's them 2 whole beds.
Well, you've got bunk beds, so just think of one of them. That's 1 foot.
No. Look how wide it's going to be.
Yeah, it could be bigger, I think, on that picture. And the headlamps came down closer, and a giant hand reached towards the windshield. And there's only a few different
I wish my bed were
pictures
small.
in this book, but that's the picture. That's the picture, just a couple of black and white sketches.
Small.
Holly Joe, give us a wave. Holly Joe, give us a wave. The Iron Man. Hogarth's father put on speed. He aimed his car at the foot. Crash! He knocked the foot out of the way. He drove on faster and faster and faster, and behind him on the road a clanging, clattering boom went up as the iron skyscraper had collapsed.
That is amazing.
Zaya is amazing. What do you say?
Thank you.
The iron giant, with his foot knocked from under him, had toppled over. What do you think about that?
Toppled over.
So he's driven into the foot of the Iron Man, and the Iron Man's fallen over. What would you do? Would you do that, or would you drive?
I think that to him is like a toy. Nah.
To the Iron Man, the car looks like a toy.
Yeah.
Yeah, but it's knocked him right over. He's fallen over. So it must have hit him quite hard. Remember?
Then it's a strong toy.
Yeah. Practically, that's fine. Let's carry on. And so Hogarth's father got home safely. But, in capital letters, but, next morning, all the farmers were shouting with anger. Where were their tractors, their earth diggers, their ploughs, their harrows from every farm in the region? All the steel and iron farm machinery had gone. Where to? Who had stolen it all? There was a clue. Here and there lay half a wheel, or half an axle, or half a mudguard.
Maybe he has in his morning dinner.
Maybe. Carved with giant tooth marks where it had been bitten off. How had it been bitten off? Steel bitten off, which is very, very strong, remember.
Where's my what?
What had happened? There was another clue. From farm to farm, over the soft soil of fields were giant footprints, each one the size of a single bed, followed by the farmers in a frightened, silent, amazed crowd followed the footprints. And at every farm, the footprints visited. All the metal machinery had disappeared. Finally, the footprints led back up to the top of the cliff where the little boy had seen the Iron Man appear the night before, when he was fishing. The footprints led right to the cliff top. All the way down the cliff were torn marks on the rocks where a huge iron body had slid down. Below, the tide was in. The grey, empty, moving tide. The Iron Man had gone back into the sea. So the furious farmers began to shout. The Iron Man had stolen all their machinery. Had he eaten it? Anyway, he had taken it and it was gone. So what if he came again? What would he take next time? Cows? Houses? People? They would have...
Not people.
Do you not think?
I'm not cows.
No.
It's not metal.
They would have something to do. They couldn't call to the police or the army because nobody would believe about this iron monster. They would have to do something themselves. So what did they do? At the bottom of the hill below where the Iron Man had come over the high cliff, they dug a deep, enormous hole. A hole wider than a house and as deep as the 3 trees on top of the other. It was a colossal hole, a stupendous hole, and the sides of it were sheer as walls. They pushed all of the earth to one side. They covered the hole with branches and branches and covered it with straw and soil. And then they finished the hole, when they'd finished, the hole looked like a freshly ploughed field. So it was a trap, wasn't it? So if the Iron Man was going to step on this hole, he would fall into it.
What's in it?
It's empty. So they've dug a massive hole.
But how could they do that with diggers?
With the diggers that they had left, or maybe they used spades. Whatever they had, they managed to...
Spades?
Yeah.
They can't do it with spades.
You know what I mean? Garden tool, like big garden
You
tool.
can't do it with that.
Why? If there was lots of people.
Nah, still.
Nah, he's not having it. He's not having it. Now.
Or you only could build that's not breaking the law.
It's breaking the law. That's right. Now, on the side of the hole, opposite the slope.
If you're ologist
Listen.
looking for bones.
Oh, an archaeologist, you mean?
I did
archaeologist.
Ologist because they're different kind of ologists.
Now, on the side of the hole, opposite the slope of the top of the cliff, they put an old, rusty lorry. That was the bait. So that means that the Iron Man would see the old rusty lorry and think, "Ooh, I want to eat that," and then it'd go, and then it'd go down into the trap. Now, they reckon the Iron Man would come up over the top of the cliff, out of the sea. He would see the lorry that was painted red. He'd come and get it, chew it up and eat it. But on his way to the lorry, he'd be crossing the hole. And that moment he stepped with his great weight on that soil held up with only straw and branches, he would crash through the hole and he would never get out. They'd find him. That's what they're saying.
Maybe he's a bit tall enough to his head
we
is
don't know.
down, and he could do and he picked up the people and whacked him on the rusty lorry.
They'd find him there in the hole, and they'd bring a few bulldozers and earth movers that he hadn't already eaten, and they'd push a pile of earth on top of him and bury him in the hole. They were certain now that they'd get him. Next morning, in a great excitement, all the farmers gathered to go along to examine their trap. They came carefully closer, inspecting to see the hands tearing at the edge of the pit. They came carefully closer and closer. The red lorry stood just as they had left it. The soil lay just as they had left it, undisturbed. Everything was just as they had left it. The Iron Man had not come. Nor did he come that day. Next morning all the farmers came again, and still everything lay just as if they had left it. And so it went on and on, day after day, until the Iron Man never came. Now the farmers began to wonder if he would ever come again. They began to wonder if he had ever come at all. They began to make up explanations that had happened to their machinery. Nobody likes to believe in an iron monster that eats tractors and cars.
Iron Man he's gonna turn to a human.
Do you reckon?
And he turn, and guess what he's gonna be?
What?
The actual Iron Man he saved the Earth.
Oh, like from the Avengers.
Yeah.
Interesting. Soon, the farmer who owned the red lorry they were using as bait decided that he needed it, and he took it away. So there lay this beautiful, deep trap without any bait. Grass began to grow on the loose soil. The farmers talked of filling the hole. After all, you can't leave a giant pit like that. Somebody might fall in. Some stranger coming along might just walk in and fall in it. But they didn't want to fill it. It had been such hard work digging it. Besides, they all had a sneaking fear that the Iron Man might come again and that the hole was their only weapon against him. So at last they put up a little notice. Can you read that one? What does the sign say? Swallow your drink.
Danger, keep off.
To warn people away, and they left it at that. Now the little boy Hogarth had a great idea. He thought that he could use that hole to trap a fox. He found one dead hen one day and threw it out on top of the loose soil over the trap. Then towards the evening he climbed a tree nearby and he waited. A long time he had waited. A star came out and he could hear the sea. Then, there, standing at the edge of the hole, was a fox. A big red fox looking towards the dead hen. Hogarth stopped breathing and then stood fox without moving. Sniff, sniff, sniff. Out towards the hen.
Stop breathing.
But
you're gonna die.
No, Hogarth stopped breathing. He held his breath. He thought, let's just be still and quiet as possible. If he made a noise, the fox would hear him. But he did not step out on the trap. He was too smart to walk out there, and he knew it wasn't safe.
Foxes is smart. He only
was smart, yeah.
Live hens because
Interesting.
The hens could just easily escape.
But at that moment, he stopped sniffing. He turned his head and looked towards the top of the cliff. Hogarth wondered what the fox had seen. He looked towards the top of the cliff. There, enormous in the blue evening sky, stood the Iron Man on the brink of a cliff, gazing inland. In that moment, the fox had vanished. Now what? Hogarth carefully and quietly, hardly breathing, climbed slowly down the tree. He must get home and tell his father. But at the bottom of the tree he stopped. He could no longer see the Iron Man against the twilight sky. He had gone back over the cliff into the sea. Or was he coming down the hill into the darkness under the high skyline towards Hogarth and the farms? Then Hogarth understood what was happening. He could hear a strange tearing and creaking sound. The Iron Man had pulled up the barbed wire fence that led down the hill, and soon Hogarth could see him as he came nearer, tearing the wire from the fence posts, rolling it up like spaghetti and eating it. The Iron Man was eating the barbed fencing wire. But if he went along the fence, eating as he moved, he wouldn't come anywhere near the trap, which was out in the middle of the field. He could spend the whole night wandering about that countryside along the fences, rolling up the wire and eating it, and never would any fence bring him near the trap. But Hogarth had an idea. In his pocket, amongst other things, he had a long nail and knife. He took these out. Did he dare? His idea frightened him. In the silent dusk, he trapped the nail and knife blade together. Clink, clink, clink! At the sound of metal, the Iron Man's hands became still. The Iron Man must have thought, ooh, what's that? After a few seconds, he slowly turned his head and the headlamp eyes shone towards Hogarth. Again, clink, 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 went the nail on the knife. Slowly, the Iron Man...
What did that say?
We'll look at it in a second. Slowly, the Iron Man took 3 strides towards Hogarth and again stopped. It was now quite dark. The headlamp shone red. Hogarth pressed close to the tree trunk and between him the Iron Man lay in the wide lid of the trap.
Oh no.
Clink, clink, clink. Again he tapped the nail on the knife, and now the Iron Man was coming. Hogarth could feel the earth shaking under the weight of his footsteps. Was it too late to run? Hogarth stared at the Iron Man looming, searched towards him for a taste of metal that had made that inviting sound. Clink, clink, clink went the nail on the knife, and crash! The Iron Man vanished. He was in the pit. The Iron Man had fallen into the pit. Hogarth went close. The earth was shaking and the Iron Man struggled underground. Hogarth peered over the torn edge of the great pit. Far below, 2 deep red headlamps glared at him from the pitch blackness. He could hear the Iron Man's insides grinding down there, and it sounded like a big lorry grinding its gears on a steep hill.
If I were teleported in the story,
Yeah.
kick him in the butt and say, let the Iron Man out.
You don't think they should trap the Iron Man?
No.
Hogarth set off. He ran home with the great news.
And
He had
called the
passed
police.
He had passed the cottages on the way, and he turned down the lane towards his father's farm, and he was shouting, "The Iron Man's in the trap, and we've caught the Iron Man!" And the farmers saw the Iron Man wallowing in the deep pit. They sent up a great cheer. He glared up towards them. His eyes burned red from purple to white, from white to fiery, whirling black and red, and the cogs inside him ground and screeched. But he could not climb out of the steep-sided pit. Then under the lights of the car lamps, the farmers brought bulldozers and earth pushers, and they began to push on top of him. The struggling Iron Man, all earth Lay had dug when they first made the pit, and that had been piled off to one side. The Iron Man roared, and the earth began to fall on him. But soon he roared no more. Soon the pit was full of earth. Soon the Iron Man was buried silent, packed down under the soil, while the farmers piled the earth over him in a mound that made a hill. They went to and fro the mound on their new tractors, which they'd bought since the Iron Man ate their old ones, and they packed the earth down hard. They all went on talking and cheering. They made sure they had seen the last of Iron Man. Only Hogarth felt suddenly sorry. He felt guilty.
Page.
It was he, after all, who had lured the Iron Man
We almost
into
there to Auntie
the
Bananas.
pit.
Thingy, look.
The end of chapter 2.
And we on Auntie Banana thing. And we on there.
Oh yeah, we got to there, didn't we? Zai's been reading this with his Auntie Banana, who lives in London. They've been doing it on FaceTime each night. So,
Mummy.
wait a second, because people are going to be waiting for the challenge now. They need to know the challenge. So those of you that managed to make an Iron Man or draw an Iron Man picture, could you please send that to us? A few of you sent them already, but we'll share those.
I didn't see him.
I need to show you them.
Yeah, is that good?
Yeah.
Cool.
So we're going to share pictures of those. So do keep an eye out for those pictures. But we need a challenge for this chapter. So chapter 2, everybody's been scared of the Iron Man. Scared of him, and they've made this big massive trap, and they've managed to trap him and bury him. Do we think that's right?
Wait. On the last on the other chapter one,
Yeah.
Bananas on.
No, we can't say anything about that chapter yet because they've not got to that part yet.
His
So
head.
pause. Don't say anything.
His head is
the-
like a... But they already know that.
Okay.
But the Iron Man's got like the other cap
Yeah.
because
Good boy.
now Iron Man
Okay.
on his head.
Yeah. Don't say that yet then. So, the challenge is, you need to discuss with your family if you think it was right for that village to trap the Iron Man and bury everything on top of him, and what would you do? What would you do
What
in
did
that
that say?
situation? I'll have a look in a minute because I need to scroll back to read them. So, we came up with a challenge that I want you to talk about that, and then if you can, if you want to practice your writing, could you write something about that? What would you do? if you saw the Iron Man came where you live, what would you do and how would you feel? You might even think about what feelings you might feel and you might act it out. So you could feel scared. Zaya, can you show me scared face? You could feel excited. Like, oh my goodness. And you can feel lots and lots of different feelings. Perhaps you might feel all of those different feelings. But I want you to take the moment to have a chat about that with your family. And then I want you to write it down. So in your own way, you might write a poem about how you might feel if you saw the Iron Man. Or you just might write a few sentences that say how you would feel if you saw the Iron Man. Or you just might take some pictures of you doing those faces of those different feelings. Because Hogarth at the end, he started to feel guilty now. So he's already felt fear, he's felt intrigued and like wanting to know a little bit more about him. So there's lots and lots of different things. There's a few options there, okay? So that's the challenge, Emma. I know Emma's going to be asking what the challenge is. There you are. Okay, so give us a wave. Lots and lots of waves. Iron Man is big. He's massive. Hi, Zaya.
What did
Somebody
that
hi,
say?
Zaya. Oh, Nanny Plummer says, love you, Zaya. Azaria and Isaiah are watching. Sorry if I pronounced those wrong, guys.
They all said like the same.
They have. You've got similar names, haven't they? Like Nasaya and Zaya.
Nessa.
And hey from
Nanny,
Chloe.
hi Nanny Plum.
Zaya, you are amazing. You read that one before, didn't you? So that is chapter 2. So your
What is
homework.
the challenge?
Don't push it too far.
Why not too far?
In case you knock it over or knock it off. So your challenge is talk about chapter 2. Was it wrong or was it right to trap the Iron Man and bury him completely? What would you do? Wave. What would you do? And how would you feel if you saw the Iron Man? So there's lots of different options there. So you could be writing something, writing a part of a story. You could write a poem. You could take some pictures of your faces. Bish bash bosh. Is that okay, guys?
Today, could we do a YouTube channel? A kill in Fortnite equals 1,000 V-Bucks. Please.
Today, Zai wants to do a YouTube video about Fortnite. I'm going to think about it. I'll have a think. SOS, help me. Right then, everybody, we will let you get on with your lovely Monday. And for those of you that haven't seen our recent post about your bookshelves, it's a little bookshelf challenge for you, where I want you to take a look at your bookshelves, and grown-ups, send me a message if you might need something. Me and Zaya are going to head out today in the van, and we're going to go and post some books through to letterboxes. So if you've not checked out what we're doing there, please do check it out, because we've run out of books, but I'm going to get some more because there's quite a few people who've sent a message, which I think is really nice. So enjoy the rest of your day. Namaste. Zaya, you saying goodbye to everybody?
Namaste.
Goodbye.
Henchman doesn't count.
Goodbye.
So henchman doesn't count, okay?